Welcome to the deep dive, where we like to, well, dive deep.
Really deep.
Yeah, into a single source of information. We're talking laser focus here, trying to uncover those hidden gems of knowledge. And today, oh, we're going somewhere good. We're diving into self-transformation and spiritual awakening.
Big topic.
The big leagues, right. And get this, our source is this raw, unfiltered talk given by this, well, he's pretty much a legend in the world of spiritual teaching.
I'm intrigued. What do you mean by raw?
Okay, so picture this. A room full of students, totally captivated. And this teacher, he's not reading from a script or anything. He's just speaking straight from the heart.
So we're talking off-the-cuff wisdom.
Exactly. He goes off on these tangents, shares these personal stories. You can tell he's just completely in the flow.
Sounds like our kind of source.
Yeah.
So what's the core message? What's he really driving at?
He keeps coming back to this one thing, self-observation. He's like, that's it. That's the key. He even says other spiritual practices are like, and I quote, kindergarten compared to self-observation.
Wow, he doesn't mince words, does he? But why the emphasis on self-observation?
Well, he connects it to the ego. You know, that inner voice that's always got something to say. He's basically saying that self-knowledge, really seeing yourself clearly, that's the only way to dismantle the ego. And until you do that, true transformation, the kind that sticks, that leads to lasting spiritual awakening, it's just not going to happen.
That's a powerful statement. But it makes you wonder how many of us are truly self-aware, like really paying attention to our thoughts or reactions without getting swept away by them. It's harder than it sounds.
He actually tells this really intense story about his own life. He talks about how he came from a pretty dark place. He even hints at violence, chaos. You can tell it was rough. And then, bam, he meets his own teacher, and it's like everything changes. Total 180.
He found his path, the thing that gave his life meaning. That's pretty incredible.
It is, and it leads into another key concept he talks about, congruence.
Yeah.
Basically, he calls out people who just practice spirituality on the surface, you know, without really embodying it.
He's talking about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. He's saying you can do all the yoga and meditation you want, but if you're still letting anger, jealousy, that ego run the show, then what's the point? Like memorizing a recipe but never actually cooking the dish, you know?
Makes sense. So it's about aligning those actions with our beliefs.
He says it's about aligning your thoughts, your words, your actions. It's about living ethically, authentically, really embodying those deep down values in every aspect of your life.
It's not just about what we do on the meditation cushion, but how we move through the world.
Right, exactly. He's challenging us to live our truth, not just think about it. So how do we actually do that, though? How do we bridge that gap between, like, the spiritual ideals and our everyday lives?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. He takes this sharp turn and dives straight into the root of suffering.
Oh, this is where it gets intense.
Yeah, and you know what he pinpoints as the biggest culprit? Possession.
Possession, like material possessions.
He starts there, but he goes way deeper. It's like he's getting at this primal urge we all have to cling to things.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
He's talking about the ego's need to grasp, to hold on tight, and not just to stuff, but to ideas, beliefs, even our sense of self. He's saying that this deep-seated need to possess, to control, that's where suffering really takes root.
And this is where he connects it all back to the state of the world, right?
Exactly. He even brings up things like wars and conflicts, saying they all come back to this fundamental us versus them mentality, this illusion of separations that our egos create.
So it's like that same possessive energy that makes us cling to a relationship or an idea, it's also fueling conflict on a global scale.
That's exactly what he's getting at. He's saying it's all connected. This illusion of separateness, this need to possess and control, it creates so much suffering, both in our own lives and in the world around us.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what if we could somehow let go of that need to possess? Could we create a more peaceful, more loving world?
It's a huge question, but one worth exploring. And he seems to believe that real change has to start on an individual level, within each of us.
Which brings us to his take on love, right?
Oh yeah, and this is where he really flips the script.
Because when he talks about love, it's not about hearts and flowers.
Not even close. He presents love as this powerful force for unity. He challenges that possessive way we often view love, especially romantic love.
So less about needing someone, more about connecting with them.
Exactly. He talks about love as this expansive energy that links everything and everyone. It's about recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness, breaking down those walls of separation that the ego tries to build.
Okay, I love that idea, but honestly, it feels a little, I don't know, idealistic. Like, how do we actually live that out in our daily lives?
He has this amazing phrase for it. He calls it the principal cohesiveness of creation. He's suggesting that we're all woven together in this intricate web of life, connected by this invisible thread of love.
That's beautiful imagery, I'll give him that.
Mm.
But how do we actually tap into that? How do we cultivate that kind of expansive love in a world that can feel anything but loving? It's like we know it's there, that loving energy, but how do we actually tune in? How do we clear out all the noise and static?
He uses this really interesting metaphor. He talks about removing the obstacles that prevent us from seeing what's already there, kind of like clouds obscuring the sun.
Okay, I like that. So the sun's always shining, that love, that connection, it's always there, but it's our stuff that gets in the way.
That's the gist of it. He says it's our thoughts, our attachments, our fears, all those things we cling to, those are the clouds. And the work of self-transformation is about clearing them out, letting the light shine through.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, he's honest about that. He says it's not always easy. It's an active process, like a battle against the ego's grip on our minds.
Yeah, he doesn't really let us off the hook, does he?
Nope. He's like, get in the ring. It's time to fight for your own awakening. But he also offers a path, a way to channel that energy. He talks a lot about service.
Service, like volunteering, that kind of thing.
He actually makes a distinction between two kinds of service: service to self and service to others. And while he acknowledges that self-care is essential, he really emphasizes the transformative power of dedicating ourselves to something larger than ourselves.
So finding our purpose, our role in the bigger picture.
Yeah, and he reminds us that we don't have to have it all figured out. The answers are already within us. We just have to create the space to listen.
Which brings us right back to self-observation.
Full circle. He ends with this beautiful image. He talks about opening our hearts, literally.
Mm.
He compares the heart to a parachute, saying it only works when it's open.
Wow, I love that analogy. It takes courage to really open our hearts, doesn't it? To be that vulnerable.
Absolutely. But that's where the real magic happens, in that space of openness, of surrender. He's inviting us to let go of control, to embrace the present moment with a sense of wonder and possibility.
It's like he's reminding us to approach this journey with a beginner's mind, with curiosity and a willingness to be surprised.
Exactly. You know, it's funny, he never actually defines what the soul is.
Now that you mention it, he doesn't, does he?
He just points us in the right direction and encourages us to discover it for ourselves.
Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe it's not about finding some fixed definition, but about continuously exploring, evolving, and discovering what it means for us individually.
He leaves us with this really thought-provoking question, almost like a challenge. If you had to define your soul, what would it be? What brings you that deep sense of purpose, that joy, that feeling of truly being alive?
Those are great questions to sit with. And on that note, I think we've done our fair share of deep diving for today.
Definitely surfaced some real gems this time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into self-transformation and spiritual awakening. Remember, the journey continues long after the podcast ends. Keep seeking, keep growing, and most importantly, keep listening to the whispers of your own soul. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.